Right.
Here we are with Alyssa today. How are you?
Doing okay.
Excellent,
My
excellent.
daughter frequently joins me for class, so she thinks she needs to be part of this meeting too.
Fair enough. This is a very important meeting.
Go eat your snack, love. Okay.
Alyssa, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I live in Illinois, and years ago stumbled into a Latin teaching job because someone needed a they needed someone to take their like third and fourth graders and said, well, you took Latin in high school and don't hate third and fourth graders. And we're not finding a lot of overlap between people who know any Latin and also like that age of kid. And it's okay that you forgot all of it. You can just stay a week ahead of the kids and you'll be fine. And that was 9 years ago. And but that turned into a much longer term job as the teacher who taught the more advanced classes started scaling her load back and started retiring. I realized, oh, I need to learn more Latin than I know. It is no longer working for me to stay 2 weeks ahead of the kids in the curriculum the school is giving me. When I'm not doing Latin or chasing littles, I perform and teach improvisational comedy, and those are the
Very
things I do.
similar, very similar to teaching Latin.
You know, there's more in common than one might think. Yes. Yes. Okay. Go eat your snack, love. It's bedtime. Okay. Sorry.
That's fine. Very welcome in SeumasU. All people are welcome in SeumasU, including children. Yes. What tipped you over the edge to come and do classes with me?
We were much earlier in the pandemic, and I was realizing that what I had taught before for my students was not working when I taught it to them online. Mm-hmm. And the truth is, it probably wasn't working very well before that. But having it online made that very stark, that what I am trying to teach them, and like the way I'm communicating it, is not connecting with these kids, and they're not retaining it, and they can pass a quiz, but it doesn't translate into doing anything useful except for learning to pass more quizzes. So I dug around online to look for Latin teachers who were teaching in a different way than I learned how to teach, which was pretty strict grammar translation, and that was it. And stumbled on you and a few other, I think, people that you were probably also connected with, and your schedule works better for my schedule, and here we are a year later.
Here we are a year later. How would you say your Latin has improved in this last year?
I can read. I didn't have any Latin training in college. I switched to Greek, which didn't go well for me. It was also grammar translation Greek. But my high school Latin was really spotty. And as I've been teaching the last 2 years and like kind of suddenly taking over courses that I'm realizing like, oh, I'm having a little bit of trouble reading the longer passages that my students are having to read. And I've noticed that now I can just sort of breeze through those like they're English, which is nice. I mean, they're pretty basic Latin, but still, even a few years ago, even 2 years ago, I was still having to really labor to understand them well enough that I could then explain them to my students. And now because I don't have to do that work to understand them, because I can just read them, I can have more interesting conversations with my students than let's parse these words. We can talk more about the characters and the ideas and things like that.
Yeah. What is something fun about our classes, and what is something surprising, particularly at the start, about our classes?
I think let's see, this is both fun and surprising, that I feel like the other people in my cohort, I feel like I know them. They live in other parts of the US and also in Australia. and we only have talked about things in Latin. But I definitely feel like, oh yeah, those are my friends. That might be pandemic madness, but
maybe,
I also,
but it's also just an advantage of the cohort
yeah,
system.
but you have some camaraderie, which I wasn't sure how that would work in an online class, but it has worked. And that I feel like my understanding of what I hear and read pretty far outpaces my ability to produce. And that shouldn't surprise me, except for that I took like no pedagogy classes ever. And so I'm pretty much self-taught for how to be a teacher. So realizing that and getting more in my students' space of like, oh, they're understanding a lot more than they can repeat back to me, I'm assuming, because I'm understanding a lot more than I could then repeat back to you.
Yes.
So yeah, that's what's fun.
It's almost a universal rule that people understand more than they can produce. But on the teacher side, it can be self-frustrating because you expect production. Even though you might know it's not true, you expect the production of someone else to match to bring out their understanding. But
and because that's how the curriculum I've been given is written. Like that's the assumptions that it makes. And so I didn't think to question that until now. I do. Now I realize that like, my students are understanding more than they can produce back to me. So how do I know what they know besides quizzing them? Well, let's have conversations that circle around topics, which I had read about in theory, but hadn't got to be part of until I got to take one of your classes.
For someone who is thinking of starting one of my classes, what could they expect? What should they brace themselves for?
If you're really good at school and good at grades, just go ahead and let go of that. That's not the most useful thing here. That the more time you spend reading, the better. If you have a choice between going through the exercises or reading the passage again, just read the passage again, like if that's your time constraint. I found, especially once we got past the first few chapters of Orberg, that I benefited from doing one read like early in the week that was a very quick read, and I just skipped stuff that I didn't understand. And then the following days would then take a smaller chunk at a time and look up words that I wasn't sure about or grammar I wasn't sure about. And then when I'd go back and do one last, like, maybe I have time to skim this one more time before class and realize like, oh, I actually can read this now instead of just get a gist. Now I understand more. So planning on reading things 3 times, honestly, like a fast time, a very slow time, and then another fast time.
I think that's such helpful advice in general. I think often we have a mentality of, I've read something, I'm done with it.
I have checked it off now. Thank you.
That's right. Yes, but actually, it's the reading and it's the rereading and the rereading that. All right. Well, thanks very much for joining us today and sharing your thoughts.
You're very welcome.
And I'll look forward to seeing you back in class